Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Subarow, President of the League of Women Voters of Anne Arundel County. We would like to welcome you to the Candidate Forum for Anne Arundel County Board of Education. As you know, all 7 seats on the Board of Education are up for election this year. Therefore, it is very important that we get to know the candidates and their plans for the students of Anne Arundel County. The candidates for Districts 1 and 2 are running unopposed, and unfortunately, one of the candidates for Districts 3, 4, and 5 were unable to attend tonight. Therefore, we will be hearing tonight from candidates for Districts 6 and 7. The League of Women Voters policy prohibits any debate with an empty chair. The candidates who are unable to participate have been invited to attend the candidate forum, and you will have the opportunity to speak with them informally after the program. Would any candidates who are not participating in the program tonight please stand up and introduce yourselves with your district number so you can be located after the program.
Hello, my name is Jack Hardman. I'm here representing Gloria Dent from District 1. If you have any questions, please come find me. Practice.
Hi, I'm Erica McFarland,
Tonight we will have a total of 5 candidates for Districts 6 and 7. There are 2 candidates for each of these districts plus a write-in candidate for District 7. As you may know, school board seats are nonpartisan. We look forward to hearing the views and positions of the candidates on matters affecting the students and schools of Anne Arundel County. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, we would like to thank our hosts, Village Commons Community Center, for providing this beautiful venue for our candidate forum, with special thanks to Tori Jacobson, the manager director of Village Commons Community Center, for all his assistance. We would also like to thank the Anne Arundel County Police Department and the Waugh Chapel Security for their assistance. This event is co-sponsored by American Association of University Women of Anne Arundel County, NAACP of Anne Arundel County, National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Anne Arundel County Chapter, Annapolis Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, North Arundel County Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Maryland Alliance of Black School Educators, Greater Cofton Council, Village Commons Community Center at Waugh Chapel, Junior League of Annapolis, League of Women Voters of Maryland, and of Anne Arundel County. This event is being recorded by Mark Goldberg of Spectrum Productions for dissemination to our co-sponsors' websites, social media sites, and the general public, so that anyone who was unable to attend tonight can view this candidate forum prior to voting. Our sound system is being provided by Chesapeake and Potomac Audio Visual Services Incorporated. Your attendance at this event acknowledges your consent to be filmed. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Tanya Milner, the Provost and Vice President for Learning for Anne Arundel County Community College. Please welcome Dr. Milner.
Thank you, Amanda. I'd like to introduce our panel who will be asking questions formulated by a committee representing our co-sponsors and partner organizations. Our distinguished panel is Alpha Stevens, past president of League of Women Voters for Anne Arundel County, William Andrioni, a junior at Severna Park High School, and Megan Sundberg, president of Junior League of Annapolis Incorporated. Now I would like to introduce our candidates alphabetically and in numerical order by school district. A brief biography for each candidate is included in your program. From District 6, Edeline Barros, Joanna Bache-Tobin. From District 7, Maisie Howard, Dawn Pulliam, and Jeremy York. The candidates will have no opening statements, but will each have 2 minutes at the end to provide a closing statement. Please note that none of the questions have been provided to the candidates in advance. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the answer order of the districts and will initially answer in alphabetical order. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question and will be afforded an additional 30 seconds after everyone has answered if they would like to add any comments. Our timekeepers in the front row will alert the candidates when they have 15 seconds left and when their time has elapsed. As a courtesy, we ask that the audience please hold all applause and/or cheering until the end so that everyone may hear the candidates' complete answers. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to silence their cell phones and remind you that no photography is allowed inside this venue except for our videographer. A recording of this candidate forum will be available on our co-sponsors' websites, social media sites, and on YouTube within a few days. To begin, I would like to ask panelist Alpha Stevens to ask the first question of candidate Edeline Barrows of District 6, who has won the right to answer first. The candidates of each district will answer questions in a rotating manner so that each candidate for each district has the opportunity to go first.
Good evening. Question number 1. How will you work to implement the priorities described in the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Strategic Plan, and how will you ensure they are implemented in an equitable manner? And for our audience, the priorities are achieving academic excellence, future readiness and transitional preparedness, investing in staff, supporting the whole child, and building and sustaining our future. Ms. Barrows.
Hi. So I'm Adeline Barros. So my first priority, it's we need to go back to the basic of principle of teaching. I think that a lot of this program is taking the kids away from what really is important on the academic matter. I'm proposing that we would have to have a special class for special needs, of course. And I do propose that we need small classes. And, the kids who have too many in classes, too many kids, it's very hard for the teacher. Any kind of program you do, doesn't matter what you're going to do, if the number of the kids in the class is too big, there is no way for any teacher to do a good job. That's it.
Next response, Joanna.
Thank you. So the primary role of the Board of Education is leadership. And the strategic plan is a critical part of that. It has to be aligned through every single part of the school system. The role of the board is to monitor that, to ensure that we are holding the superintendent accountable for all of these outcomes. I am laser focused and always have been on improving student outcomes. And so obviously number 1 is academic excellence. That's our top priority in our strategic plan, and that is critical. And that also means preparing students for the world we live in now and the world they will be living in the future. And that's why future readiness is so critical. We need graduates who are ready to move on to any situation that works for them, whether it's college, whether it's career. But the truth is, they're going to have to reinvent themselves over and over and over again in their lifetimes, because that's the nature of the working world now. You don't do the same job for 40 years. So they have to be ready for that. So mostly we have to produce students who have this particular ability. They have to know how to learn, because they are going to have to continue to learn for the rest of their lives. And it is my job as a Board of Education member to ensure that this works throughout the entire system. Thank you.
Next response, Maisie, please.
Thank you very much. Can you please repeat the question?
How will you work to implement the priorities described in the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Strategic Plan? And how will you ensure they are implemented in an equitable manner?
Thank you very much. The strategic plan that the Board of Education approved for this year outlines critical areas that they want to move ahead with. The important thing is prioritization based on our budget and programming needs, making sure that we have alignment with those things. And in order to implement those things, whatever that agenda is, in an equitable way, ensuring that the stakeholders at the table are all the right stakeholders and inclusive of the stakeholders who need to be at the table. It doesn't need to be a small table. It needs to be inclusive, it needs to bring in community members, and it needs to have buy-in from students, administrators, principals, and teachers. Thank you.
Dawn, please.
Hello, thank you. Okay, for this question, I'm going to pull from some of the strings that Dr. Tobin has mentioned. I agree that we do have to be ready for the future, focus on future readiness, but before we do that, we have to make sure that our students are proficient in reading, writing, and arithmetic before they can be ready for the future. That has to be the key priority. We need to make sure that we have a distraction-free learning environment so our teachers can do the job that they need to do properly. We also need to make sure that parents, community members, and caregivers are at the table as a part of the solution. That's key, not keeping them away from the solution. And then also making sure that we are, in terms of sustaining, making sure that we are conscientious in the dollars that we spend, and that making sure that we are looking for ways to always be more efficient and reassessing our current programs and making sure that they have what they need, but using technology to drive those solutions to drive down dollars. Thank you.
Jeremy, next response,
Thank you.
please.
Yeah, I think the number one thing we can do to impact student outcomes is invest in our teachers better. While we made some improvements with increasing pay for early career teachers last year, experienced teachers in our county still make quite a bit less than neighboring counties. If we're going to attract the best teachers and hold on to them, we have to pay them well enough to keep them here, and we have to provide them the support and resources that they need. That's my number one priority going into this next year. Secondly, when it comes to transition, which was mentioned, our career readiness programs are great. However, they need to be modernized a bit. There are so many digital skills that can be taught today that students can take into well-paying jobs without going through college. And we've seen report after report over the last couple of months of just how quickly the percentage of students going into college is dropping. Those students need alternatives that they can turn to. At Cat South, we only have a single digital program for IT networking. There are so many other digital skills like digital marketing, computer programming, data science that we can be teaching those kids to provide them additional options. Thank you.
30 seconds to respond. Yes.
So listen to my colleagues. I want to add something that's extremely important nowadays. If you want to have a successful future, you need to feel safe on your present. So safety in school, it's one of my priority in that plan, because a lot of students, if they go to school and they don't feel safe, they would not have the free mind to learn.
Any others? Thank you. Next panelist, William Andreoni, will ask the second question, beginning with Joanna Bache Tobin of District 6.
Thank you and good evening. Are there any instances where books should be removed from school libraries? And if so, what kind of books and why?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So it's my view that if an individual caregiver or parent has a concern about a book, we have a current process that any parent can avail themselves of, in which they can ask for any book to be reviewed. And if it is found not to meet the standards that we have, and there are review committees for this, and sometimes parents are part of those committees, then that book will be removed. But the fact is that I trust our very highly trained media specialists and our very highly trained educators to make the decisions based on the standards that we have. They are transparently out there of age-appropriate books that meet the needs and interests of all our students. And any parent can request that their child not take out a certain book, and that will be honored. But that is how we should handle this. We need to trust our educators to educate. We need to trust our media specialists to do the work of curating very carefully our libraries, which they do every single day. And I just want to add one last thing. You may know that we have a cell phone policy that was started this year. One thing we have noticed, and it's across the county, is with that cell phone policy, more books are being taken out of our media centers than ever before. So thank you.
Maisie, next response. Sorry. Nope, it's going to go, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I do think that I know because I have served on the CAC for the past 3 years, that there is, in fact, a process in place to bring books to the attention of the Board of Education and ask to have that book reviewed. So because there is a process in place, the only purpose of a book being withdrawn would be if the Board of Education determined that that book should be withdrawn based on the guidelines that committee uses, and I don't know what those guidelines are. With that being said, I also work part-time at Anne Arundel County Public Libraries, and it's important to me to also understand that when we talk about the topic of book bans, or removing books or censorship, it has a context in school and a context in the public library system, in the respect that in the public library system, we're a sanctuary now. We're a book sanctuary. So all books will be available. In the public school system, the concept is it's aligned with the curriculum. It's aligned with the interests of the students. It's supposed to be what supports that school body.
Thank you, Candidate Howard.
Thank you.
Dawn, next response, please.
So yes, we've mentioned the process. There is a process. We've mentioned age appropriateness as being one of the criteria. I think it's time that we really sit back and say, okay, we have a process, but let's make sure we're reassessing that often. What is age appropriate to me may be different to someone else. Making sure that parents are a part of that process, and making sure that when you say it also has to align with the curriculums and outcomes, are what we're showing really, is that really the need? Think about it. There are things that we want children to learn, but that doesn't mean it necessarily aligns with the outcomes in the curriculum. But definitely reassessing the process, making sure that parents are a part of that process, and that we have transparency so they know what that process is. And I'm not sure how many of you here know what that process entails, but I think it's a time for all of us to understand that process and be a part of it. Thank you.
So
Jeremy?
I serve on the board for the county libraries and have been a part of the changes that we've made over the last year to update our policies, our material selection process, and ultimately declare ourselves a sanctuary for books. And it was really fun, to be honest, to have those conversations with the public and think through all the different perspectives, right, on what books should be in the library and what shouldn't be. And ultimately, what honestly, some members of the board weren't sold on this idea, but through conversation over months, we all came to a unanimous position when thinking through, okay, because if you set a line of what's acceptable or what's not, right, to one person or another, where do you put the line? To Don's point, right, I might have a different opinion than the next parent. So how do we set it be based on one person's views or another's? We shouldn't. That's why we have professionals in place that, as Joanna was saying, I trust to make the right decisions in terms of age appropriateness. And if there are errors in that process, or in those decisions, there's a process to handle it. But we shouldn't be scared of ideas and scared of art or anything else that's a little bit different than what we like and want to change a whole process or set of criteria based on personal preference. Thank you.
Next response, Adeline? Adeline? Not yet. One moment. Adeline, then we do our responses. Go ahead.
Yes, what comes to arts could be very relevant, the art aspect of any book, because sometimes arts could be a little bit hard for one and normal for someone else, like, the line of what's right and wrong in human being. But we're talking about kids, we're talking about the curriculum, the strengths for their life. So I think that's obviously we need the parents' input on that, and then we need the professional that's going to be checked with that. And before anything else, I think that subject should be important matter of anything about banned books and take away from the library. We could always create a different section for different kind of books that's not relevant with age, for instance, like, have adults books, kids books. So in that question, we might need to have a better look on these books. And the specialist, with the parent, should be the one that's gonna together make that decision.
We'll have 30 seconds for any additional response.
I just want to mention that, when you talk about age appropriateness and what's right for children, we do that process also in movies. And yes, the art is great, but it's what we're introducing our children to and making sure that we're all on the same page. That's why it's so important that we have parents a part of that process and making sure they understand what that process is.
Any other responses? 30 seconds.
I believe that parents participating in the policy making and regulations is critical, not important, critical, because parents should have some type of influence in what type of materials are curated into the media center collection. And I think it's important that we develop a shared governance model that allows that.
Thank you, Candidate Howard. Next, panelist Megan Sundberg will ask the third question, beginning with Candidate Maisie Howard of District 7.
Good evening. How will you handle LGBTQ+ and racial issues brought before the board?
Thank you. And this was a question that I answered on the questionnaire as well. And I said, according to all the applicable rules, regulations, procedures, and policies. And the reason I said that is because I see people. I see people. And so every situation is a student situation that requires investigating and determining that situation, and that's the situation that needs to be addressed. It's difficult for me to discern the categorizations that people give to other people. I don't see that. And so I would handle those things according to all of the guidelines and rules that are in place and ensure that they receive an equitable and balanced experience with AACPS and whatever the interaction is. Thank you.
Dawn, you have the next response.
Thank you. In terms of this, of the question, I think that every child should be treated fairly, and they should be treated with respect, no matter what the label is. Here, it doesn't matter. When it comes to dealing with issues of different factions when it's brought to us, then we need to follow the policy and the rule of law. That's first and foremost. And making sure that we have all the details, not just from one person, but making sure we have all the details in these issues. Children need to know that when they come, or parents need to know that we care no matter the issue, and we will deal with it appropriately and making sure we follow the process. Thank you.
Jeremy, next response.
Yes, thank you. I think everyone here is going to say that every child matters, right? That we need to treat every child the same, and we need to make sure schools are safe and a welcoming place for every student. But I hope that I've put my actions where my words are. I marched in the Pride Parades this year. I actually answered the survey from Crofton Pride. I have been at Caucus of African American Leaders meetings. I went to the panel, answered their survey. I absolutely believe that every single student, no matter how they identify, where they come from, who they are, deserves to feel like their school is a home for them that they feel welcome in. Thank you.
Candidate Barros.
I think that every student counts in the class. Everybody should have the same possibility and right. And I grew up in a time with that kind of question did not even exist. And then I'm here in a good manner, and then I've been travel around the world. I've been studying for people having a little idea of what I think about that. I grew up without a mother, so I grew up with a father and brother. And I have a very strong influence, male influence in my life as a 10 boy, right? And in the school, there was no issue about that, because when I went to school, I thank God, my teachers, my school, my father, my family, everybody has a very strong impact in my life. But when I went to school in my time, I was there to do math, history, geography, science, play around. This kind of situation never come to my classes, school, years after years, since I started the first little kid as I remember until I was in Belgium, where I went to college in Belgium. I was in a community LGBTQ plus 20% of the population over there, friends from all over. But in my schools, this year, I don't think so. No one's making any difference about you being a little different. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Barros. Joanna?
Thank you. So the tagline for AACPS, the vision, the goal is belong, grow, succeed. Every child obviously counts, as Jeremy said. We all agree on that. But every child needs to feel they belong. And everyone needs different things to feel they belong. You may be aware we had a rather divisive policy that came before us last year, and there was an attempt to bring it back that would have banned all flags other than the U.S., state, county, et cetera. It was ultimately voted down. And it was voted down because those who voted against it maintained that the reality was that everybody should be able to have the opportunity to express who they were, and that educators should be free to set up classrooms in which every student feels, as my opponent said, safe, accepted, and that they belong. And therefore, that is the guiding principle. One of the 5 elements of our strategic plan is to focus on the whole child. And the whole child means the human being. And what makes that child human is what we have to see first and foremost. Thank you.
Any follow-up responses? Yes. 30 seconds, please.
It's important to remember that we all are human beings. I mean, doesn't matter if you're male or female, if you feel a little different, but what make you grow in life, it's what you learn, what you know, how you prepare for your future. So it's very important. I've been homeschooling for 12 years, and I know it is hard, but certain subject for kids doesn't matter when they're little. They want the support of the parent, the school, the teacher, and the family. That's what they really want to be, to grow a full-grown human being.
Thank you. Any other responses? Next, panelist Alpha Stevens will ask the 4th question, beginning with candidate Dawn Pulliam of District 7.
What measures would you support to identify and address barriers to participation and success for women and girls, students of color, and immigrants, especially in STEM education? That's okay. What measures would you support to identify and address barriers to participation and success for women and girls, students of color, and immigrants, especially in STEM education?
Thank you. This is an area I've worked in my entire career, so I'm very, very passionate about this area, especially the underrepresented community. Just real quick, I've worked on many programs, developing programs for underrepresented members of our community, and that's been my focus most of my career. For me, the STEM piece of that, we have to make sure that the programs that we have, that they're fully funded. When you have robotics club, robotics tracks, and you don't have the funds to pay for the pieces for the robot, we have problems. We have to make sure students have hands-on learning experiences working with industry and government. I know that we have partnerships now. We have to strengthen those, and they can also help with the financial resourcing that is needed. We also need to make sure that we're working with them closely so that we understand the critical skills that our students need for the future workforce, whether they're going into college, the workforce, or being an entrepreneur or a home caregiver. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Thank you. So the blueprint, one thing I really like about it is how much it's trying to shift resources where they're most needed. So I think the first thing we can do to better reduce those barriers is to put resources where they're most needed. I think one other thing that, one of the biggest barriers, to be honest, with people participating, whether it's women or people of color or anyone else, one of the biggest issues with participating in after-school programs and sports is transportation. I would really love to see what can we do with the local community. If it's not something we can fund, at least, right, can we maybe engage with organizations that can provide transportation so that more kids can actually get to these activities, right, and back. Thank you.
Edeline, next response, please.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
What measures would you support to identify and address barriers to participation and success for women and girls, students of color, and immigrants, especially in STEM education?
As an immigrant from Brazil, being in Belgium, having my kids born there and come back here, we have a approach that what's really important sometimes is not the research, it's not about the how much money you put on a program, because if you decide to put all your research in a certain group and take the other one out, you're going to have an unbalanced society. So we think to get together as a society, we need to have everybody, the level need to be up at the same level, and then leave the student with same program, same structure to grow on that. If you start to separate them, if you start to put people under certain circumstances because of their color, because of the immigrant, because of this or that, you make them feel guilty if they fail. They would not work hard. They think that, oh, because I have this position, I need more attention, I need more this and that, instead of focus on make a person responsible for their own work you're gonna get in accordance with what you work. You have to work hard. If you're an immigrant arrived here right now, they don't know how to speak English, what they have to do, his focus is to learn how to speak English harder than the other. These kids gonna need to work a little harder to accommodate themselves where they are as an immigrant.
Thank you, Candidate Barris.
Thank
Joanna?
you. Thank you. So STEM is a particular issue in my district because we have, if a middle or a high school student wants to go into the STEM program, they have to be able to go to the South River cluster, and that requires a bus at a consolidated stop, which generally means that child has to have private transportation. So there's a huge barrier there. So transportation is a barrier in school and out of school. Activity buses are another barrier. With regard to the question about particularly women, immigrants, people of color, the reality is, and I say this from my own experience, I went to a woman's college, Wellesley College. And one of the incredible values of that I didn't understand until I'd left is that over 50% of the tenured faculty were women. And when I was doing my doctorate and I was teaching undergraduates at Georgetown, I was shocked to learn I was the only female professor they had in 4 years. The same goes for people of color. The same goes for language barriers for immigrants. We know this from research. We know people need to see people that look like them. They need a path forward. And finally, I'd like to say there's a program going at Annapolis High that I highly support and I'd like to see expanded, where recently students who themselves have only been at the school for a year are put as buddies with new immigrant students, and that has had huge, huge success. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Tobin. Maisie?
Thank you. I think that when looking at this question, I thought about women and girls, students of color, and immigrants, and those are all very vulnerable populations, and we are talking about STEAM or STEM, where they're scoring lower in science. So, and we're also talking about potential populations that don't speak English as their first language. Teaching and instruction are going to be critical measures to put into place to reduce the barriers to people continuing their education in STEAM and STEM and transitioning into careers that are in STEAM and STEM. So we need to attract and retain teachers that can teach science and advanced science courses and mathematics courses And we need to support our women and girls. We need to support our minority students. We need to support our immigrants in other ways in order to make sure that they have the tools and the resources to be successful in those courses and in those careers. Thank you.
Any follow-up responses? Please,
So-
30 seconds.
Just want to remind you, in the state of Maryland, we are failing across the board in science and technology. Failing. It's not just Anne Arundel County. And when I've worked in different programs, one of those major barriers, science and technology isn't usually the problem, because the science and technology is a tool that we want to teach them so that can be successful. It is the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those are the barriers. Those are the core fundamental skills that they need so that they can break those barriers, and then they can learn the technology. They have to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic before they can
Thank you,
even be
candidate
successful
William.
moving on. Thank you.
We'll move to the next question. Panelist William Andreoni will ask the 5th question, beginning with candidate Jeremy York of District 7.
At-risk and special needs students frequently end up in the school-to-prison pipeline. What measures would you put into place to combat this trend?
Yeah, so there are a few things here. One, special needs funding. Two, well, actually, I wouldn't even say funding for mental health resources, because we can't really even fill the roles that we have. I think in some of our schools, we have so few mental health professionals that the ratio of mental health professional to students is 600, 700 to 1. There is no way to provide adequate mental health services or support for our students, especially those that are at risk or have extra need with those types of ratios. So not only do we need to fill the open positions we have, but we need to open up additional positions. And I think in order to do that, we're absolutely going to have to add additional incentives to their pay to be able to get them into the system. Because whatever we're doing now, it's just not working. We haven't been able to fill the positions, and it's a vital, vital need. Thank you.
Adeline, you're next.
So how to address the special needs in school, right? Yes, of course we need the research for that. We need to have a professional that's gonna deal with the issue, and hire a specialist on that. Have these kids read in different program. That's it.
So this is a focus of mine and has been for a long time. Dr. Bedell agrees, our superintendent. Special education is a 911 in our district. Now, this comes down from the federal situation with the initial act that established special education. Only about 14% of it has ever been funded appropriately. However, and so it has fallen to local districts. But the reality is that every child deserves to have the education that they need to move forward. And we have to make sure that we have the staff, we pay the staff, we have even additionally the teacher assistants, the TSAs, because it takes a lot of work to ensure that special needs students actually are able to be in the inclusive environments that we know are incredibly important. Now, Dr. Bedell has done some reorganization of a couple of our alternative schools, the Phoenix Academy and Mary Moss, to ensure that, according to research, the 10% of special ed students who do not benefit from an inclusive situation have consistent education and are not being moved back and forth between the general population and special ed. So it is a complex issue that demands a lot of work. Thank you.
Maisie, next response.
At-risk and special ed students are extremely vulnerable to ending up in the disciplinary pipeline at AACPS. And the disciplinary pipeline has no means of any centralized issue management or report management. There's no way for parents or students to centrally communicate an issue, report it up, and receive some type of resolution. I'm not sure if many of you in here have read the Code of Conduct, but there are maybe 4 pages regarding student rights and liberties, and the rest of the book is everything the students don't need to be doing. So I think that one of the things that we have to take a closer look at, if our special needs students and at-risk students are ending up in the wrong pipeline, is what are the policies and regulations that we have in place that we're evaluating them with? Are these the right ones? Are these appropriate measures? Or are we doing things that look good on paper, but the impact to the students and the families is tremendous? Thank you.
Dawn, next response, please.
Thank you. I hate to say this, but I disagree, Dr. Tobin. I do not think that mental health is the 911 in our county, actually. Special ed, I do not believe that. I think special needs, and forgive me for that, I don't believe personally that that is a priority at all. I've met 2 people in the last week that are moving out of the public school system. One's moving out of the state because the funding keeps being cut, and one that's going to private school, and they don't have the funding for that, but they're applying for grants and getting a second mortgage on their home. So I don't believe that. I do think there are things that we can do. We can go back to other models that we've done before and work hand in hand with the mental health professionals and special needs folks that are working in the community that would love to work with our students. A public-private partnership, strengthening those, making sure that we're doing better assessments and assessing the assessment that we're actually doing. And that's also been what I've been hearing from the people in the community. We have to remember the constituents are our voice, so thank you.
Any follow-up responses? We'll go to Joanna and then to you, Jeremy.
Yes,
30 seconds, please.
Sorry. I wanted to mention also that I think this is a place where the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is very valuable, particularly with at-risk students, because by putting money up front into early pre-K and kindergarten and ensuring that we have what we need in those early years, that's how you combat the school-to-prison pipeline the best, because then you address these issues head-on early and get students the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin. Jeremy?
Sure. I challenge anyone to spend 10 minutes in one of our special ed schools or a classroom that has a special needs student and doesn't have the appropriate assistant there to help the primary teacher to tell me that it's not a 911. If you speak to parents of kids that are actually in these programs, they will tell you it's a 911. Besides, if we try to form this out to the local community, that means it's only going to be something that students with money, transportation, and means of actually getting to those resources will be able to get them. Thank you.
Thank you. Maisie, you'd like a follow-up? 30 seconds, please.
Yes, I've read the special education plan, and what I can say is that there are enough special needs service delivery models that have been developed in AACPS that the only question is, are we going to invest in those? They're there, they're available, and there's a large range of them. So we need to make an intentional effort to invest.
Next, panelist Megan Sundberg will ask the 6th question, beginning with candidate Edeline Barros of District 6.
Many students at all levels face challenges, such as limited or no access to technology, reliable transportation, permanent housing, and language barriers. What actions would you propose and/or support to help them overcome such challenges and to equalize opportunities for all students at every level?
Technology, that's a very good point, but it has to be as a support, not as a one whole. So kids learn better when they have hands-on on things. So if the school do not provide that kind of technology, that will be the issue, then I think, of course, they're going to have the help with the community. So bring the community in. Nowadays, everybody has their own computer to do research, right? The phones, then you have to be allowed them to use some phones, some research. And do not forget that for me, technology, it's one complement of the write and read and the books. So the second question was technology?
Limited or no access to technology, reliable transportation, permanent housing, and language barriers.
Yes, for the transportation, there is an issue on the community, right? So that has to be more pay better drivers, to have drivers to stay on the position. A lot of drivers giving up the career because they're not supported enough.
Thank you, Candidate Barrett.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is one of the places where, again, something that has come out largely from Blueprint is starting to show its success. The concentration of poverty grants in Blueprint have funded what are known as community schools, and we have about 50 in this county at this point. And these are schools where, in addition to the Title I academic funds, you have additional funding for wraparound services, a community school coordinator, and additional medical help, with the idea that the school is the hub and the focus of the community. And I'll point you to one that I think is doing a very good job of this in my district, which is Tyler Heights. They were the first community school in the county. And they have done things, everything from hire some of the moms. I think they have about 97% English language learners in their population, mostly Spanish, and so Spanish speaking. And so they have set up these incredible supports for everything that families need right there in the school where they are trusted. And I have pushed for, and we started 2 years ago, a dual language bilingual immersion program there, which I hope will grow throughout the school, because the research is clear. Those who are not native English speakers learn English better in bilingual than they do in ESOL, and they retain their native language and that literacy, and that's what I want to see going forward. Thank you.
Maisie?
Let me gather my thoughts. What I would say is that we're not, in speaking about language barriers, I assume we're talking about where English is not their first language. The other areas that you identified, the access to technology, the transportation, and the housing, are actually, sadly, I know students that struggle with that. Not just families, but students who are in foster care, but they're still attending high school or middle school, and they may not have permanent housing, they may not have a stable home situation. But also in my district, and specifically where I live, we don't have reliable internet access. So limited access to technology is impacting the southern part of District 7 and the rural parts of our county very much so. So I think when we look at some of these issues, it's important before we stand too firmly that we realize that it slices a lot of different ways. And I think that there's a solution. There's a solution moving forward for many of these issues that allow everyone to have a voice and to have a say in how things move forward. And I think it's collaborative and it's a shared governance model. Thank you.
Dawn?
So this is an issue. I do agree with Maisie on this, and especially in the southern part of District 7. Though the reliable internet access is an issue all the way, and I'm sure many of you, if you've gone south of 214, you've recognized that. We've got to find a way to make things work. Even with the reliable transportation, I hear parents right now, no matter their status, they don't have the Chromebooks for their students to do the assignments that are needed. Technology is not the answer for teaching, but it is something that the board, I don't think, you always have these pop-up issues that come across the table when making changes or transitioning. But right now, our students, when you take the Chromebooks away, they look at their schedule at the QR code. Their SATs, like prep for that, all of that is on the Chromebook. And so that is an issue. So not only did you take that away from them, they no longer can do the assignments or look at the assignments and the documents that the teacher has actually put up into the space. So I don't believe that technology is the answer in teaching, but I do believe we need to find ways and resources to help them so that they can do their assignments properly, or find a way to transition back to where the information is not on the cloud. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Thank you. I think the number one thing is these wraparound services. I agree with Dr. Tobin that the blueprint is allowing us to aggregate resources where they're needed most, and in those areas we're able to fund these important wraparound services. The typical school system of support is fine, right, for the median, average, or even the majority of students, right? But it's the outliers where we have to get creative, right? If the bus isn't going to be able to get them, can we have other forms of transportation? And I applaud Dr. Bedell. I heard about the funding for Ubers, which basically, right? We had students at Lighthouse and other shelters, people in extreme circumstances that had no transportation, couldn't get to school. It wasn't efficient, or would have made sense to send a bus there. So we literally, basically sent an Uber, pick up the kid, bring them. Right? Every student belongs to be, or deserves to have transportation and to be able to get to school, have the food that they need. And I really, really just applaud the system for all the improvements that you all have made in recent years.
Any follow-up responses? Yes. Joanna?
Yeah, I'd like to add, this is a critical issue, and I'm really glad you asked about it, because it's one of the things that the board has to focus on a regular basis. We have to advocate for every single child, which means we have to go to our funders and get that money. So that's part of our job. But I think the reality here is that I, as a board member, represent people. I serve people who overwhelmingly are too young to vote. I'm their voice, and I have to make sure they're heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other responses? Next, panelist Alpha Stevens will ask the 7th question, beginning with candidate Joanna Bache Tobin of District 6.
If or when your district needs to redraw its boundaries, what do you think should be the primary consideration and why?
Thank you. I can't imagine we're going to be doing that, but I guess we will. So yes, we are undergoing, we've done the first half, for the first time in living memory, a full county redistricting, which is in an effort to frankly balance facilities and right the wrongs of some deep inequities that have been around for a very, very long time. And we will be starting the middle and southern half in January of 25. And here's the basic issue. The basic issue is, are you balancing the use of your facilities, right? Do you have schools that basically are running at the same level? You don't have one super overcrowded school sitting next to one super underused school. Because you can't go to the state for more money to build a facility if you're not using the ones that you have. And by the way, the county has been very clear. They need schools not to be closed so they can build affordable housing in certain areas. So the bottom line is you've got to first get the numbers right. You've got to balance facilities, and then you have to look at what makes sense. And how is it all going to work so that people are able to go to schools where it makes sense for their students to be. Now, there's always going to be a few places where that doesn't line up very easily. We have some school out on, way out in Chesapeake that's a bit of an issue on that. But that's basically the way to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin. Maisie?
I would agree with those points, that we need to look at balancing across our schools, making sure that students don't have to travel too far and that they still have some position or say and choice, and that parents and families also participate in those discussions and plannings, which we did. And thank you for that. I would agree with everything that was said.
So I agree too, but I want to add a few points to that. The southern half of the southern part of our district sometimes looks like the stepchild there. So we have been dying for new facilities, especially Southern High School, which I am a part of their ICST board. But again, it's about balancing, making sure that we have seats and butts and it's balanced across the district. I understand that. Because we do right now, we have South River busting at the seams. We have Davidsonville Elementary School that keeps adding 20 seats per year. So we have to keep that in mind. But for my district, definitely balancing that, making sure we're making the constituents in the community are a part of this process. Having over an hour drive to get to a different school is really hard on parents. And when you talk about transportation in the last question, but yes, we need to make sure that we get that the goal is to have students as close to their home as possible. We balance those seats, but then also remember the budget, making sure we do it within the means of our budget, not adding money, but making sure that we do that. Thank you very much.
Jeremy, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a tough topic. Families will be impacted. This is going to be really hard to do. If we learned anything from the first one, right? Whether or not the right decision is made, somebody's going to hurt from it. And this, these are students that are being affected. These are families. It's hard, but it's better. We can't put off a hard decision just because it's hard, right? That's how probably a lot of us have not resolved issues in our personal lives, right? Hard things have to be dealt with, as best we can handle them. So we absolutely have to balance the impact to the current families and kids with the impact on the kids and families of tomorrow. We can't mortgage our future just to make everybody happy today. We have to do what's best for all of our students going into the future. Thank you.
Adeline, you have the next response.
Yes, I'm in line on that issue of it's important to have the student as close of the house as possible. It's a big subject because we need to make sure that the facilities, the school, we would not spend more money than we could afford that. And driving especially little kids 1 hour away back and forth for the student is hard, for the parent. It's a very complex issue that we have to address that deeply and make sure that we probably do more accommodation and build around the area they are, maybe second floor or whatever. But it's important to keep our students close to the house.
Any follow-up responses? Yes. Joanna.
Yeah, it is hard, and someone's going to be impacted. I just want to share a quick anecdote with a young man who's a rising senior at Old Mill, who was redistricted to the new Severn Run School, chose to stay at Old Mill. And he said to me, when I said, "I'm sorry, I know this is hard," he said, "It is, but you did the right thing. Our school is better for it, and the students who are at Severn Run are better for it. Our students are amazing." Thank you.
Any additional responses? Yes, please.
That being said, I believe that it's accept the parent also. I believe in choice of the parent in that matter. I think it would be nice if the parent could choose where the kids want to go.
Anything? Yes.
I just ask that the community be involved in the redistricting. Because quite honestly, especially in District 7, we have Southern High School that have open seats, and then we have Davidsonville that have too many seats. It could affect the value of your home, whether you have children or don't have children. You're a community member that owns a home. It could affect many different variables in your daily lives. So I ask that you guys be a part of this process, and we will send out, there's memos on the website and everything, but you have to be an active member of the solution as well. Thank you.
Any others?
One of the important priorities I wanted to see brought forward in redistricting, the Phase 2 implementation, is around the rural part of our county, and making sure that some of the cultural and artifacts and landscape remain a part of the redistricting, that we don't overshadow the communities and the environments when we do this redistricting and we think about the whole.
Thank you. Next panelist, William Andrioni, will ask the 8th and final question, beginning with candidate Maisie Howard of District 7.
Please share your opinion of the existing reading and comprehension skills programs. What actions, if any, would you propose to enhance these programs so that all students are reading at or above grade level?
So I think when we talk about, anytime we talk about the reading comprehension programs and students reading below grade level primarily, what we have to look at is our teachers and how we're attracting the right professionals in order to teach the children, that we have the right balance of student to teacher ratios, that we're using targeted tools and curriculum in order to enhance their reading skills and capabilities, and that we're able to actually measure what we're implementing and use it to inform our next step. And I think that was one of the problems that came forward with one of the last test scores, is they weren't able to actually drill down in that test score. And so measurable data needs to be used to inform those types of programs. Thank you.
Dawn?
Thank you for that question. That's such an important question, and it's really why we're all here, is to make sure that children, every child, gets a quality education. Right now, as we mentioned, we are not doing well across the board in terms of proficiency. We need to go back and look at this like a normal program that from a program management standpoint, we're operating in the red. We need to make sure that we're really honing in and taking measurements, looking at the objectives and outcomes that we want to achieve, and making sure that we're pulsing at throughout the program, throughout the year, not waiting to the end of the year to say, oh, Johnny is not doing well, we're gonna hold him back, or we're gonna advance him and he's not ready. We need to make sure we run this like a program. We need to make sure, and I'm gonna take a note from a friend of mine who's sitting in the audience, looking at incentives, going back to Pizza Hut and the incentives program, where you used to encourage them to read, make it fun and make them have the parents involved, where you get a free pizza for reading a book, and then also for the parents gift certificates to help them too. There's different ways that we can approach this, but education is fun. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Thank you. I think one of the most exciting changes that I've seen recently is the move to the science of reading. I'm really excited about this shift in approach. I think that it will be helpful for a wider percentage of our students. The old system tended to not work as well with people that were behind or coming from maybe a different language at home or other situations. Another thing, and I realize this requires funding, which means getting help from outside the board, but I would really love to see us expand access to pre-K to more families. One of the biggest levers as well towards these scores is having kids kindergarten ready. As part of the library, we've really invested in that and tried to become a key resource for the community in helping more families get their kids kindergarten ready. But for a lot of families, they don't have the time or resources to go and use those services. And I think that expanding access to more families for pre-K is something that would be much more accessible for more families and help get those kids on track earlier. Thank you.
Adeline?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Please share your existing opinion of the existing reading and comprehension skills programs. What actions, if any, would you propose to enhance these programs so that all students are reading at or above grade level?
This is the most important question. Thank you. Because when you build a house, you need a strong foundation. So you cannot go to the roof if the foundation is strong enough. So reading, it's one of the big issues here in Arundel, 50% rate. That's very low. So does mean a lot of students, when they get at the end of the 5th grades, go to high school, they don't know how to read and write. So this student cannot go anywhere. So 50% of that student, they're not capable of reading, write, interpretation, text interpretation. So how you can have a strong house if you don't have a strong foundation? So make kids go from one level to the next just because they have to prove they have to go read everybody else's level, that's wrong. So I would reinforce the big, strong base by a new program, and the first one I reinforce on that is by repetition, and then make sure the kid know how to read and write before they can go beyond that line.
Thank you. So yes, from the moment I was elected in 2020, I started fighting for the science of reading. We knew that's what we had to have. Finally, that started a couple of years ago, and we now are rolling out what's known as the CKLA curriculum, and we hope we're going to see good results. We had the new math curriculum last year, Reveal Math. We expected to see what's known as an implementation dip the first year. Usually when you do something a first year, it goes down. Our results have gone up, which tells me that we're prepping our teachers right, we're giving them the supports they need, And that's what we're hopeful with CKLA. And actually, to Ms. Pulliam's point, we do have very tight pulsing, as she put it, on these programs, because that's what you have to see what's going on. But that has to continue. And to the pre-K, that's absolutely right. Again, that's where you're going to set children up for success, and you're going to lower the barriers that things like poverty or a different language at home set for children so often, so that they are ready to go. So those are the things for me that have to be the initial supports to make sure that children really are learning to read. And by the way, we are also very fortunate to have a new state superintendent of schools who created the miracle of Mississippi and reading scores, and she knows what she's doing. So we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We would now like to ask each of the candidates to give a 2-minute closing statement, beginning with candidate Jeremy York of District 7.
Thank you. First, I want to take a few moments just to, I see so many faces here that are friends that have supported me or volunteered. I just want to say thank you so much. I really love seeing all of you here. I hope that tonight, I believe anyways, that every question I answered with a solution. I'm a very solution-oriented person. I always try to think of the actual impact on people, and the solutions that we should be putting in place. You should always be taking that into account. Having broad ideas about how things should be better is great, but we really have to have solutions that will move us towards the school system that we want to have. I guess the last thing I'll touch on is just how important it is that we continue to invest in our teachers. I don't want to say it's a 911 issue, like as it is with special education, but we really do have an issue across the country with retaining, attracting teachers, filling open positions with qualified, high-quality teachers. There's so many teachers quitting at the highest rates ever. Both of my older sisters were public school teachers, and both quit within the last year, and I've seen it time and time again. The pipeline of new teachers coming into our systems is dwindling. It's a real issue. We have to do a better job of paying these positions better and supporting them better, taking care of them, making Anne Arundel County the best place to work as a teacher so that we can hold on to the teachers we have and we can bring in great new teachers. Thank you.
Dawn?
I just want to thank everyone here to take the time out, because there's another debate not as important as this one. But thank you very, very much. I want to thank just everyone who's opened their door to us, all of us. The campaign season is not easy, but just thank you. Thank you for being here to listen. Thank you for all the volunteers and community members for everything that you do, holding us accountable for every discussion and for anything that we do moving forward. We need that. We need you here as we move forward, no matter the outcomes. I just want to let you know, I spent 28 years in education. It is my passion. I love it. I was a child that our parents did not have money for a private school, and my mom and dad divorced at a very young age. She said, get your education. It's the one tool that will break poverty. It is the one tool that they can't take away from you. And we have got to do that here. I will stop at nothing to make sure that every parent and every child gets the quality education that they need. We pay over half of our taxes in education, and damn it, we deserve the best. We live in an incredible county, and I've gotten a chance to meet all of you. We all deserve, and we need to fight for that quality education. We need to do that by focusing back on academics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, making sure we have a distraction-free learning environment for our teachers, and then making sure parents have a seat at that table. Thank you.
Maisie?
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, to their partners, to the coordinator for this event, to our moderator, to my candidate colleagues here, and to our questionnaires. This was an absolutely wonderful evening. I'm so excited that all of you all came out, all of the audience members and supporters and questioners and challengers. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to have, to share my vision with you for AACPS. I've served for the past 3 years as on the Citizen Advisory Council. I've represented the Southern Cluster, Southern High School, Southern Middle School, and the feeder schools. I've gone out and I've talked to many of you. I've talked to parents and families and students and teachers and administrators in order to gather that information and use it to inform our policies. I believe in AACPS. I believe in public education. My mother is a public school teacher my entire life, and my father is an Army vet. And one thing that they always instilled in me is how important education is. And so I certainly believe in it. But I believe that there's a way to do it where we can include the community and where we can share governance with families, with parents, and with students. I think that's an important framework for us to move forward with and be the best school district in this country. We can show them that not only can we have the first student member of the board with full voting privileges, we can have the first shared governance model with parents and students as partners. Thank you so much. I am the only certified write-in candidate in District 7. If you select write-in, that's me. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Dr. Tobin?
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you to all the candidates who came. This really has been a pleasure. Everything I promised to do when I ran in 2020, I have done. I don't promise things that I don't believe I can deliver. And that includes everything from the science of reading, healthy school hours, holding a superintendent accountable, hiring a new superintendent who is pretty much the most effective in the country if you ask anybody. And now we're beginning to see the results of that. Scores going up, students doing better. And that is and always will be my laser focus. What are we doing to improve the outcomes for every single student, academically, socially, and emotionally? That's our guiding principle. That is what I think about every moment on the dais when I'm evaluating a policy, a budget, hearing testimony, anything. How are we going to improve our students' outcomes? That's what I'm there to do. In a couple of days, it will be just 1 year since my mother passed away at the age of 90. She grew up a coal miner's daughter in East Tennessee and went to the one high school in her county and told me my whole life that was what opened her life. She was the first person to go to college. She moved to New York City. She met my father. We grew up all over the world. We lived in Africa. We lived everywhere. She always told me, education exists to expand your world, to show children there is a big, amazing place out there. And that's what I promise to do every day. Thank you.
Candidate Barros?
Thank you. Thank you for your smile. Thank you for everybody. I'm so happy to have such wonderful audience. Good listener. No disrespect for no candidates. I'm very happy about that. I'm going to tell you, I was a little bit nervous, and now I'm feeling so happy that I can share my personal educational, let's see. Okay. My dad passed away 4 months ago at the age of 102. And he was waiting for me to go there. I told him I will be in a race right now, and then he said, please come to see me. I need to see you. So I went there in May I have to put my election on the side. And the one thing he taught me all my life, be always as a kid and as a student, always learn, you know. He was 102 and then he was healthy. God just took him because it was his time. And then he told me, give the best you can for anybody you met anyway. He told me, never stop learning. Even when I was a young mother, a teenager mother, and I have to go through a lot in my life to get where I am. And then one thing I do appreciate, one thing in the whole my life, it's when parents get together, they can move the world. So kids need the parent in the school. Kids need the teacher, they need the support, but without parents behind the kids, we cannot build a strong society. Learn math, history, it's extremely important. Have the family behind, any kind of family is the most important thing. And I wish that for my few years, I will bring people together. That's my goal.
Thank
to
you.
grow this society.
Let's give all the candidates a huge round of applause. On behalf of the co-sponsors, we would like to thank the candidates, the panel, and you, the voters, for attending tonight. Thank you for taking the time to educate yourselves on the candidates and each of their positions. We hope that you will not only vote yourself, but remind your friends and families to do so as well. Your vote matters, and we know every vote matters. The candidates will be available for a brief meet and greet afterwards if you have any questions you would like to ask them directly. Thank you all for coming and have a wonderful evening.